Oh, that the great Richie.
My brother here. How you doing, sir?
one of your callers. Someone called on the station, that's a lot of things and so. And I recognize.
Okay, where am I? Good morning.
So I recognize that you, in terms
Good
of.
morning, sir.
Okay, sorry to be late. I actually thought it was going to be at 8 o'clock, and I must have written all of this down incorrectly. So that's my failure. So we will start at 7:15, right? Am I correct? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? You can't hear me, right?
We can now, sir.
You can't, what, is it something on my part or is it something on your side?
It was on our side. The YouTube was, like speaking at the same time as the show.
Okay, but you can hear me now.
Yes, sir. Loud and clear.
Okay, so this is just for clarification. This is the third year, right? Am I correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're right.
And so the students would be, who are we?
Brother Soul and Jean-Noel.
Huh?
Brother Soul and Jean-Noel.
Spell that for me.
S-A-U-L-I-N.
S-A-U-L-I-N-E?
No, L-I-N.
L-I-N, no E at the end.
No.
Okay. And that's
Then Jean-Noel.
And who?
Jean-Noel. December.
J-O-H-N, right?
No. J-N.
J-N.
N-O-E-L. You can put a dash in between.
O-E. I don't, okay. You guys would send me an email with the names of everybody correctly spelled. So we only have 2 students. Is that it? 2 students?
4, sir. 4.
4, and I'm only seeing 2. So do me a favor. Okay, do me a favor, all right?
I think the others were supposed to meet at the building.
Okay, so do me a favor, someone send me an email with all the students with their, name spelled correctly, full name, and then I really appreciate this. Okay, so what I want to do to begin with this particular class is to build on some of the things that we have studied before. And so let me try to see if I could pull up a sample of what we will be dealing with, if I could find the email. Okay, let me get a stick to put into this machine. Okay, let me try to get this note out here. Come on. Okay, let me try to close this and open this. Where is it? It's on this stick. Okay, bear with me. I'm trying to find it on this stick here. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Okay, there it is. I think I just saw it. Okay, let's go here. Okay, I'm going to, this is probably too small for you guys to see, so let me make it a little wider. A little, make it larger, I guess. Okay, all right. So maybe 24 farms, 24 farms, okay. Okay, so now I need to share this. Let me go back here and share. How do I share this? Share, wait, share screen. Okay. Oh, so it says the host must, who's the host? Who's the host? Somebody has to disable so I can share the screen.
Just a moment, sir.
Okay. Okay, let me see. Okay, can I share yet?
Yes, sir, you are the host now.
Can you, okay, so let's go here. And so let's talk a little bit about this. You know, we studied in terms of development psychology, we studied a lot about Freud. So what I want to do in this period is to talk a lot about trying to compare, you know, religion and see how these guys, you know, how they understand religion. And so, for example, so I'll be looking at most of these contributors, such as we'll start with Freud first, who Freud, as you recall from previous classes, that Freud developed psychoanalysis, which is a determinism kind of a view that really talks about all of our human behavior are basically have some roots to it. So for example, Freud's model of transference. Do you know what I mean, transference? For example, transference simply means that, you know, I am putting something into space in our conversation. I am sharing with you something, but you also are responding. So that's like, so when we talk about countertransference, I'm talking about your reaction to my transference. In other words, in this space, we are communicating. So as a therapist, what I want to do is to understand the transference, to understand what you're putting out in the space. So in therapy, I am listening so that while you are speaking, the information that you're putting out there, I am trying to understand it, to see what the roots of it is, to see what you're thinking, to see who you are, what's bothering you. Are you a happy person? I try to understand that material. That material is referred to as a transference. However, you as the listener also are communicating back to me. So we normally refer to that as a countertransference. So so I want you to be able to understand and to be able to define those two terms, transference. So Freud's model of the transference is what I'm doing here in Freud's mind is a repetition of something. In other words, this interaction, this transference that I'm putting out here is something that has its roots in the past. So Freud is arguing in terms of the psychoanalytic investigation that religion then has its roots in the transference. And I'll show you how he arrived at that conclusion. For example, why would someone become a Catholic? What's the process? Can you share with me when someone say that they're a Catholic? What's the roots of that? Where does that come from?
May you repeat the question again, sir?
When someone said that I am a Catholic,
Catholic.
yes, the Catholic Church, where does that come from? Remember, Freud is simply saying that it's the transference. It has its roots somewhere.
Yes,
In the
sir.
short, it was because they were born a Catholic. They were socialized in a Catholic family. And therefore, they are Catholic now, not necessarily because they investigated, but it's simply because they were programmed. There's something in their past. You follow?
Yes, sir.
So Freud is then going to argue, and I'll show you if you go through this example that I put on the screen. So the next line says, this is exactly what Freud did, focusing on the history of the individual as the future of an illusion. So Freud is arguing that religion is an illusion. And he's going to argue you can't see God. You follow? But yet you come to believe in him. Freud is saying that that is dysfunctional, because if you can't prove it by science, then really it doesn't make any sense. So what I want you to understand, that Freud was an atheist. He never believed in God. But we have to understand the history of Freud. Freud grew up in a Jewish home, Judaism. He grew up under the Torah, but he hated it because of the rules. And then he argues that this is a delusion. This is sickening. You can't see God. So why am I going to be able? So Freud, rebelling from his own upbringing, from his own childhood, then he set out to justify why religion is a delusion, it's a sickness. So Freud died as an atheist. So sometimes when we read about these guys, we have to begin to understand their roots, where they're coming from. Does any of this make sense? So say, for example, we may have men who are, there was a recent situation in Jamaica where a bishop of some kind, I don't know what his title was, I think it was not a couple, but maybe less than 6 months ago probably, where at this church they were offering, I guess, human sacrifice in Jamaica. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That was Kevin Smith of the Pathways International.
Right, okay. So from Freud's perspective, how do you get a group of people to do this? Because there has to be something in their past that needed fixed anyway, that they were sick. Because religion, in Freud's mind, is something people who are religious, who join religion, are people who need to be fixed. They need psychoanalysis, they need treatment. Because God is, you can't really scientifically prove the existence of God. So for example, Darwin also argued the same point, that man wasn't created. So the whole Bible story is nothing more than a fiction. And then Freud set out to prove how that is. So for example, if even within the churches of Christ itself, you may have preachers who are psychologically ill. who choose religion, but their life is really horrible. Such as the guy you saw in Jamaica, Kevin. So Freud is trying to get us to see that a person like this is using religion as an extension of his dysfunction. And therefore, this person is in need of treatment.
Third.
You follow? Because it's the transference. And so we will be looking at how, basically how Freud arrived at this.
Third.
So it's, if you notice the next sentence, it congruent with Freud's model of transference is the definition of understanding as seeking and finding the historical origin. In other words, Freud is arguing that, for example, a lot of folks may be religious because they were socialized in a religious family system. And so Freud is arguing that it is all part of an illusion, because it gives them some sort of comfort and some sort of a hope that really doesn't exist. So, and this is a paper that I had written. That's why I have all the pages and so on, part of my not dissertation, but a paper that I had to write. So this was this method is applied to particular constituency in terms of religion. So, for example, this is an example that Freud actually gave. This is an example, and I'm going to give you this example. This is an example that Freud actually gave. He says, a boy is bound to love and admire his father, who seems to him to be the most powerful, the kindest, and the wisest creature in the world. That's what a young boy thinks of his father. Then Freud went on to say, God himself is, after all, only an exaltation of the picture of the father as he is presented in the mind of every childhood. What Freud has done is he's taking this father image that a child worship, and then he transfer it over into this invisible God. You see the connection, how you arrive at that? Now, here's the problem with this though. Well, there's several problems. There's several problems with this that we can begin to focus on. One is, if Freud is correct, then you have to reason that in a home where there is no father, what happens? In a home where a child doesn't have that secure environment to feel safe, to be able to make that leap from a good father to now the leap to being able to transfer that. Remember, we're talking about transference, right? Be able to transfer that to God, then we have a serious problem.
Yes, sir.
So you can see that Freud, in a way, is correct. He's correct in the sense that the child starts out to realize that his father has omnipotent power. His father is the most loving person, the most powerful father. The child believes, the young boy believes that nobody can beat his father. You follow? Because his father is all powerful, his father is all good, especially if the father is nice and loving in the home. Then eventually that child begin to transfer that image to the God above. as he began to grow and as he began to develop. Now, for you guys, that would be seen as the correct thing because you do believe in God and the evidence show that there is a God. The issue isn't to try to diminish it. The issue is trying to arrive. What I want to show you is how Freud arrived at his theory. And not everything he said was incorrect because that's how it happens in childhood. So if the home doesn't create that environment, remember we said in a previous class that the child eventually believes that the mother has all power. Remember we said that? Because the child, when the child is hungry and start crying, who provides the child food? The mother,
The mother.
right?
Yes,
So
sir.
the child eventually, and if Fred is going to argue this, eventually the breast becomes the attachment. The child becomes attached to the breast. Why does the child becomes attached to the breast? Because when the child is hungry, that's the source of the food. But eventually, the child is then weaned from the breast to other source of food, maybe a bottle, right? And sometimes the parents may give the child a nipple, and a bottle, or sometimes the child may even begin to suck the thumb. When the child gets hungry or stressed, because remember, the child gets confused at that early age between the emotional feeling that he or she is having. So it's difficult for the child to distinguish between being hungry or being anxious or wet or frustrated. So what the child begins to do, the child begins to soothe him or herself by using the thumb. You follow?
Yes.
And
Yes, sir.
sometimes the child can get confused because if the child is hungry and the child goes for the thumb, there's no food in it. You follow?
No, sir.
But the child doesn't got that. But the mother is wise enough to understand when she fed the child last, so she realized that this is time for feeding. So the mother gives the child the breast. So the
Sir.
child, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry to cut you, sir, but our time is up.
Oh yeah, okay. But I apologize for being late. But we will continue this line of discussion, and we will take each of these persons. We got to spend more time on Freud to understand why Freud come to reject religion and conclude that religion was a disorder. And he died that way. He died as an atheist.
Yes,
So
sir.
we'll continue to have that discussion. Okay.
All right.
No problem. So you need to add, how do you, let me say stop. Okay, so then I end.